Hello everyone, I'm Kathleen Pelly. Welcome to the special omnibus edition of Journey with Story, where you can listen to all of this month's episodes in one single sitting. Oh, mums and dads, and all of you grown-ups, you might be interested in a little handout that I have available on my website that gives you lots of tips on raising kids who love to read. Of course, I know you're interested in that because you're already sharing this storytelling podcast with your little ones. So go to www.journeywithstory.com and click on the Resources tab at the top. And you can also find the link in our episode notes. Now, let's take an omnibus journey with story. Now, let's take an encore journey with the selfish giant. Every afternoon, as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. It was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars. And there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl, and in the autumn bore rich fruit. The birds sat on the trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games in order to listen to them. "How happy we are here!" they cried to each other. One day the giant came back. He had been to visit his friend the Cornish ogre and had stayed with him for 7 years. After the 7 years were over, he had said all that he had to say, for his conversation was limited, and he determined to return to his own castle. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in the garden. "What are you doing here?" he cried in a very gruff voice, and the children ran away. "My own garden is my own garden," said the giant. "Anyone can understand that, and I will allow nobody to play in it but myself." So he built a high wall all around it and put up a notice board. "Trespassers will be prosecuted." He was a very selfish giant. The poor children had now nowhere to play. They tried to play on the road, but the road was very dusty and full of hard stones, and they did not like it. They used to wander round the high wall when their lessons were over and talk about the beautiful garden inside. "How happy we were there," they said to each other. Then the spring came, and all over the country there were little blossoms and little birds. Only in the garden of the selfish giant it was still winter. The birds did not care to sing in it as there were no children, and the trees forgot to blossom. Once a beautiful flower put its head out from the grass, but when it saw the notice board, it was so sorry for the children that it slipped back into the ground again and went off to sleep. The only people who were pleased were the snow and the frost. "Spring has forgotten this garden," they cried, "so we will live here all the year round." The snow covered up the grass with her great white cloak, and the frost painted all the trees silver. Then they invited the north wind to stay with them, and he came. He was wrapped in furs, and he roared all day about the garden and blew the chimney pots down. "This is a delightful spot," he he said. "We must ask the hail on a visit." So the hail came. Every day for 3 hours he rattled on the roof of the castle till he broke most of the slates. And then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. He was dressed in grey, and his breath was like ice. "I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming," said the selfish giant as he sat at the window and looked out at his cold white garden. "I hope there will be a change in the weather." But the spring never came, nor the summer. The autumn gave golden fruit to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. "He is too selfish," she said. So it was always winter there, and the north wind and the hail and the frost and the snow danced about through the trees. One morning the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard some lovely music. It sounded so sweet to his ears that he thought it must be the king's musicians passing by. It was really only a little linnet singing outside his window. But it was so long since he had heard a bird sing in his garden that it seemed to him to be the most beautiful music in the world. Then the hail stopped dancing over his head, and the north wind ceased roaring, and a delicious perfume came to him through the open casement. "I believe the spring has come at last," said the giant, and he jumped out of bed and looked out. What did he see? He saw a most wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept in, and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree that he could see, there was a little child, and the trees were so glad to have the children back again that they had covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's heads. The birds were flying about and twittering with delight, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. It was a lovely scene. Only, in one corner it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree, and was wandering all round it, crying bitterly. The poor tree was still quite covered with frost and snow, and the north wind was blowing and roaring above it. "Climb up, little boy," said the tree, and it bent its branches down as low as it could, but the boy was too tiny. And the giant's heart melted as he looked out. "How selfish I have been," he said. "Now I know why the spring would not come here. I will put that poor little boy on the top of the tree, and then I will knock down the wall, and my garden shall be the children's playground forever and ever." He was really very sorry for what he had done. So he crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly and went out into the garden. But when the children saw him, they were so frightened that they all ran away, and the garden became winter again. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were so full of tears that he did not see the giant coming. And the giant stole up behind him and took him gently in his hand and put him up into the tree, and the tree broke at once into blossom, and the birds came and sang on it, and the little boy stretched out his 2 arms and flung them round the giant's neck and kissed him. And the other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, came running back, and with them came the spring. "It is your garden now, little children," said the giant. And he took a great axe and knocked down the wall, and when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. All day long they played, and in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye.
"But where is your little companion?" he said, "the boy I put in the tree?"
The giant loved him the best because he had kissed him. "We don't know," answered the children. "He has gone away."
"You must tell him to be sure and come here tomorrow," said the giant.
But the children said that they did not know where he lived and had never seen him before, and the giant felt very sad. Every afternoon, when school was over, the children came and played with the giant. But the little boy whom the giant loved was never seen again. The giant was very kind to all the children, yet he longed for his first little friend and often spoke of him.
"How I would like to see him," he used to say.
Years went over, and the giant grew very old and feeble. He could not play about any more, so he sat in a huge armchair and watched the children at their games and admired his garden.
"I have many beautiful flowers," he said, "but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all."
One winter morning, he looked out of his window as he was dressing. He did not hate the winter now, for he knew that it was merely the spring asleep and that the flowers were resting. Suddenly, he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked and looked. It certainly was a marvellous sight. In the furthest corner of the garden was a tree, quite covered with lovely white blossoms. Its branches were all golden, and silver fruit hung down from them, and underneath it stood the little boy he had loved. Downstairs ran the giant in great joy and out into the garden. He hastened across the grass and came near to the child, and when he came quite close, his face grew red with anger, and he said, "Who hath dared to wound thee?" For on the palms of the child's hands were the prints of 2 nails, and the prints of 2 nails were on his little feet.
"Who hath dared to wound thee?" cried the giant. "Tell me, that I may take my big sword and slay him."
"Nay," answered the child, "but these are the wounds of love."
"Who art thou?"
said the giant, and a strange awe fell on him, and he knelt before the little child. And the child smiled on the giant and said to him, "You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise." And when the children ran in that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered with white blossoms.
Now, let's take a journey with the Great Flood. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there lived a handsome boy named Tall Tree. He was called this because his father was a tree so tall that it almost reached the sky. His mother was a celestial being, a beautiful creature from heaven who came down to earth from time to time. She often used to rest in the shade of the tall tree. In time, she became the tree's wife and bore a healthy boy child who became the tall tree of this story. When Tall Tree was about 8 years old, his mother left him beside his father, the great tall tree, and returned to her home in the heavens. One day a terrible storm arose suddenly. For days on end, the rains poured down on earth until all the ground was under water. Soon, mountainous waves began sweeping toward the tall tree, the father of the young boy. Father Tree became alarmed. He called to his child and said, "I shall soon be uprooted by this terrible storm. When I fall, you must climb into my branches and perch on my back. Otherwise, you will be drowned." The storm became more and more violent. Lashed by screaming winds, great waves thundered against the trunk of the tree. Then came the fiercest gust of all, and the kingly tree fell with a crash. Quickly the boy climbed on his father's back and held tightly to the branches. The great tree floated on the rushing waters. For days and days it drifted on and on, at the mercy of the angry waves. One day they came upon a great number of ants struggling in the water. The poor ants, on the point of drowning, cried, "Save us! Save us!" Tall Tree felt sorry for them and asked his father, "Shall we save the ants?" "Yes," his father replied. "Climb up on my father's back," Tall Tree called to the ants, "and you will be saved. Hurry, hurry." Tall Tree helped the tired and weary ants get up out of the wind-whipped water onto the tree. The ants, of course, were very happy to be saved. Soon a great cloud of mosquitoes came flying through the storm. They too were weary, for nowhere was there any place to land and rest their tired wings. "Help! Help!" the mosquitoes buzzed. Again, Tall Tree asked, "Father, shall we save the mosquitoes?" "Yes," his father replied. So Tall Tree helped the tired mosquitoes alight on the leaves and branches of his father's back. The mosquitoes were also very grateful to be saved from the storm. As Tall Tree and his father and the ants and the mosquitoes drifted along, they heard the cry of a child. In the waves they saw a boy about the same age as Tall Tree. "Save me! Save me!" cried the boy. Tall Tree felt sorry for the boy. "Let's save the boy too." But this time his father did not answer. Again the cries of the boy came pitifully across the raging waters, and again Tall Tree said, "Please, father, let's save that boy." Still there was no answer from Father Tree. Tall Tree pleaded with his father a third time. "Father, we must save that poor boy." The father finally answered, "Do as you wish. I leave it up to you." Tall Tree was overjoyed and called to the boy to come and climb up onto his father's back. So the boy was saved too. After a very long time, the Father Tree, Tall Tree, the ants, the mosquitoes, and the boy who had been saved from the waves came to an island. It was the peak of the highest mountain in that country. A mountain as high as Pike too. The mountain with a white head, so called because the snow never melted from its crest. As soon as the tree reached the island, the ants and the mosquitoes thanked Tall Tree and took their departure. The two boys were very hungry, for they had not eaten for many days. They wandered over the island searching for food and finally came upon a small straw-thatched hut. "Please give us some food," the boys cried out. An old woman and 2 young girls came out. They welcomed the boys into the house and gave them food. One of the girls was the daughter of the old woman, and the other was the child of her neighbour. The great flood and storm had destroyed everything on earth except this little island. The only people left in the world were the 2 boys, the old woman, and the 2 girls. There was no other place where the boys could stay, so from that day on, they lived with the old woman, working for her as servants. It was a peaceful life. The days slipped into weeks, the weeks into months, and the months into years. And the boys grew into strong, fine youths. As the old woman watched the boys grow into manhood, she thought to herself, "They will make fine husbands for my 2 girls." One day she told the 2 boys, "Whichever of you is the more skilled shall have my own daughter for his wife, and the other shall have my neighbour's girl." Now, the old woman's own daughter was very much the more beautiful of the 2 girls, and the boy, who had been saved by Tall Tree during the flood, wanted very much to marry her. He thought of a way to get her as his own wife. "Grandma," he said, "Tall Tree has a strange power which none of the rest of us has. For example, you can mix a whole sack of millet in a pile of sand, and he can have the millet and the sand separated in no time. Let him try it and show you." The old woman was surprised to hear this. "Is that so?" she said. "Come, Tall Tree, let me see if you really can do this amazing thing." Tall Tree knew he was being tricked. He knew he certainly could do no such thing, and he knew the other youth was planning to get him into trouble, so he refused. But the old woman was adamant. She was determined that Tall Tree should show her his strange and amazing power. "If you don't do it, or if you can't do it, I won't let you marry my daughter," the old woman said. Tall Tree saw that he could not escape, and he sighed. "Very well then," he said, "I'll try." The old woman emptied a sack of millet into a pile of sand and thoroughly mixed them up together. Then she left, saying she would return in a short while to see how he was getting on. Tall Tree gazed hopelessly at the pile of millet and sand. What was he to do? It was not humanly possible to sort the millet from the sand. Suddenly, Tall Tree felt something bite his heel. He looked down, and there he saw a very large ant. "What is troubling you, Tall Tree?" the ant asked. "I suppose you no longer remember me, but I'm one of the ants you saved a long time ago in the flood. Let me help. Tell me, what is the matter?" Tall Tree told the ant how he must separate the millet from the sand, or else he would not be able to marry the old woman's daughter. "Is that all the trouble? Then your worries are over. Just leave it to me." No sooner had the ant said this than a great mass of ants came swarming from all over the place. They attacked the huge pile of sand and millet, each ant carrying a millet grain in its mouth and putting it into the sack placed nearby. Back and forth the ants hurried. In a twinkling of an eye, all the millet was back in the sack. When the old woman came back, she was amazed to find that Tall Tree had finished an impossible task in so short a time. The other youth was surprised too, and annoyed that his trick had failed, but he still wished to marry the old woman's daughter, and he pleaded with her, "Please let me marry your child." The old woman hesitated. She thought for a moment and replied, "You are both very dear to me. I must be absolutely fair. Tonight will be a moonless night. I shall put my daughter and my neighbour's daughter each in a separate room. One will be in the east room and the other in the west room. You two will stay outside, and when I say ready, you will both come into the house and go to the room of your choice. The girl you find there will be your bride. I'm sure this is the best and fairest plan." That night, the two youths waited outside for the old woman's command. Suddenly, Tall Tree heard a mosquito flying close to his ear. "Buzz, buzz," said the mosquito in a little voice. "Tall Tree, you must go to the east room. Zzz. Remember, it is the east room. Zzz." Tall Tree was overjoyed to hear this. He felt sure the mosquito was one he had saved during the flood. "Ready!" the old woman cried out. The two boys went into the house. While the other boy was still hesitating, Tall Tree went straight to the east room. And there he found the good and beautiful daughter of the old woman. She became his wife. The other youth could not complain, so he took the other girl for his wife. Both couples were very, very happy. They had many, many children, and they lived happily ever after. In time, their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren spread throughout the world. And again, the earth was filled with people. Now, let's take a journey with Sacred Waterfall. Bending Willow lived with her tribe near to the mighty Niagara Falls. She was a bright girl, full of joy and a sense of adventure. These positive qualities led to a host of suitors, but they were all unwelcome to Willow. She was already in love with a young man from a faraway tribe. Among the suitors was a chief called No Heart. This spiteful old man was used to getting his way. He was a powerful person, and nobody dared refuse him anything. No Heart announced their engagement without even asking Bending Willow for her hand in marriage. She felt sick at the thought of living with such a cruel man, but her parents were too scared to challenge the old chief. The day of the wedding was set. The night before this fateful day, Bending Willow fled into the forest. She ran without knowing where it was going, her feet pounding the forest floor. All of a sudden, she tripped and fell face down in the dirt. Having fallen, she couldn't get up. Many hours passed. Willow sobbed until she was exhausted, and then lay listening to the roar of Niagara Falls. All at once, she sat up. The waterfall had given her an idea. Willow crept back to her parents' wigwam and took the family canoe. In the dead of night, she dragged it to the river and climbed in. The water was moving quickly and she sped downstream. Willow mouthed silent prayers to all the gods she knew, begging them to save her. The canoe started to jolt, bending Willow about. She was in the white water rapids that led to the mouth of the waterfall. Willow could feel the spray, and the roar was enough to drown out her screams for mercy. Onwards the canoe hurtled to the brink of the waterfall. Bending Willow raised her arms aloft to give thanks for her short time on earth. And the canoe went over the edge. Willow waited for the icy water and the long drop. But instead, she felt herself raised up. She was flying on white wings made from clouds. It seemed she would fly straight into the emerald water that cascaded over the cliffs. But at the last second, the curtain of waterfall parted to allow her through. Bending Willow looked around in wonderment. She was in a cave, and standing before her was a tiny old man whose white hair and beard were made of mist. He introduced himself as the spirit of cloud and rain. And he smiled kindly at her. The walls of the cave were studded all over with gleaming white flowers carved from rock. Despite the wall of water that acted as its door, the cave was warm, thanks to an enchanted fire that crackled away in the corner. Cloud and rain wrapped a thick blanket around Willow's shoulders and led her over to a pile of furs near the fire. He brought her some morsels of fish, garnished with a delicious moss jelly. In the morning, the cave was full of light and dancing rainbows. Willow knew that she was safe from No Heart. He could never find her here. The spirit appeared, his kindly eyes twinkling.
Bending Willow, I know your story, and you are welcome to stay here with me. You must not fear No Heart any more. An evil snake is poisoning the water that he drinks from, and soon he will die. Do not be afraid. I will keep you safe from harm.
Bending Willow stayed with Cloud and Rain for several months. He shared his magic and wisdom, teaching her which herbs and flowers had special properties and how to make medicines. Willow was a quick learner and delighted in her new knowledge. Her time in the cave passed quickly and happily. When the spirit came to her one day with news of No Heart's death, Willow was surprised. She had almost forgotten about him.
It is time to go back to your village, Bending Willow. When you arrive, you must persuade your people to move their camp and live close to me. I will defend you if that evil serpent should dare to follow. Tonight I will make you a bridge of mist, and it will guide you home,"
said Cloud and Rain. Night fell, and inky darkness spread through the sky. The full moon hung like a silvery orb and cast a gentle glow over the waterfall. Cloud and Rain summoned spray from the falls and blew it gently upwards. Soon a delicate bridge of mist formed, and the spirit helped Bending Willow to climb up onto it, calling out encouragingly as she embarked on her journey. All through the night Willow climbed until she was back at her village. She was welcomed with open arms by her tribe, and she talked excitedly about Cloud and Rain and the magic he had taught her. The villagers thought she must be crazed from lack of sleep and company. Willow then started to tell her people about the evil serpent that was poisoning their water. "We must move our camp and go to live near the Cloud and Rain spirit. He will protect us," she implored. After this heartfelt speech, an elder woman spoke out. "That is enough, Willow. We entertained your silly stories about this so-called spirit, but do you really think we'd move from here because of some made-up serpent? This is a good spot with plenty of food." Willow was distraught, but refused to give up. Her family were the only ones to believe her, and she made sure that they took their water from a spring that was far from the village. Time passed, and some members of the tribe began to sicken and then died. A few started to follow Willow's advice to gather water from outside of their camp. Soon it became clear that these people were being protected from illness. The elder woman who had spoken so harshly to Willow called a meeting from her sick bed. "I am sorry, Bending Willow. We should have believed you," she said. "It is too late for me, but not for the others. You must all leave and find a new home." Bending Willow led the villagers to a camping ground near the cave of Cloud and Rain. They lived there happily for some time before the wretched serpent managed to find them again. This time, Cloud and Rain was ready for it. He stormed over to the camp with handfuls of enchanted fire. He turned the fire into thunderbolts and then covered the area in a thick sheet of fog. The serpent was blinded by the fog and became confused. Cloud and Rain hurled one thunderbolt after another at the snake. It hissed and spat with rage, but could not escape. By the third strike, the serpent was dead. The body of the serpent was thrown into the river, where it floated through the rapids and became wedged at the mouth of the waterfall. Its weight crushed the rocks, and to this day you can see their odd formation, shaped like a tightened bow, ready to fire an arrow. Now let's take a journey with the badger and the magic fan. In Japan, goblins are called tengu, and they all have very long noses. Now, once upon a time, 3 little tengu children were playing in the forest. They had a magic fan with them, and when they fanned their noses with one side of the fan, their noses would grow longer and longer. And when they fanned their noses with the other side, their noses would shrink back to their original sizes. The 3 tengu children were having a wonderful time fanning their noses, but just then a badger came by and saw what they were doing.
My, how I'd like to have a fan like that,
he said to himself. And then he thought of a good trick. Badgers are always playing tricks and can change themselves into any shape they want. So the badger changed himself into a little girl. He took 4 bean jam buns with him and went to the tengu children. "Hello, children," said the badger. "I've brought you some wonderful bean jam buns. Please let me play with you." The tengu children were delighted because they loved to eat bean jam buns. But there were 4 delicious buns to be divided among the 3 of them, and they immediately started arguing over who would get the very last bun. Finally, the badger said, "I know how to decide who gets the last bun. Close your eyes, and the one who can keep his eyes closed and hold his breath the longest will win the last bun." The tengu children all agreed. The badger counted 1, 2, 3, and they closed their eyes hard. As soon as they did, the badger grabbed the magic fan and went running away with it as fast as he could, leaving the tengu children in the forest with their eyes closed and still holding their breath.
Ha ha, laughed the badger. I certainly made fools out of those tengu children,
he said, and went walking along his way. Soon the badger came to a temple. There he saw a beautiful girl dressed in very expensive clothes. He felt sure she was the daughter of a wealthy man, and in fact her father was a great lord and the richest man in all of Japan. So the badger crept up quietly behind her on tiptoe. Quick as a flash, he fanned her nose with the magic fan. Instantly, her nose grew a yard long. What a terrible to-do there was! Here was the beautiful little rich girl with the nose a yard long. Her father called all the doctors in the land, but none of them could do anything to make her nose shorter. He spent a lot of money on medicines, but nothing did any good. Finally, in desperation, he said, "I'll give my daughter as a wife and half my fortune to anyone who can make her nose grow short again." When the badger heard this, he said,
"Ha, that's what I've been waiting for."
He quickly went to the great lord and announced that he had come to fix her nose. So the great lord took the badger to his daughter's room. The badger took out the magic fan and fanned her nose with the other side of it. In the twinkling of an eye, her nose was short again. The great lord was very happy and started making preparations for the wedding. The badger was very happy too, because not only was he going to get a beautiful wife, he was also going to get a large fortune. On the day of the wedding, the badger was so happy that he ate and drank too much and became very hot and sleepy. Without thinking, he lay back on some pillows, closed his eyes, and began fanning himself with a magic fan. Instantly, his nose began to grow longer. But as he was half asleep, he didn't know this was happening. So he kept fanning and fanning himself, and his nose kept on growing and growing. It went right through the ceiling and high into the sky until it pierced the clouds. Now above the clouds, some heavenly workers were building a bridge across the Milky Way. "Look at that!" they cried, pointing to the badger's nose. "That pole's just the right size for our bridge. Come on, let's pull it up." And they began pulling on the badger's nose. How this surprised the badger. He started out of his sleep, crying, "Ouch! Help! Help!" And he began to fan his nose with the other side of the fan as fast as he possibly could. But it was much too late. The heavenly workers kept on pulling, crying, "Heave! Ho!" until they had pulled the badger into the sky. And no one ever saw him again. Now, let's take a journey with the Man in the Moon. The Man in the Moon and his wife, Atai, ruled the sky when the sun disappeared and night replaced day. Atai was the most visible of all the stars that were scattered across the night sky. When the other stars took their positions around her, they marvelled at her brightness and commented that she was as brilliant as the moon. They also thought that she was more useful, because ships and travellers on land could set their course by her position and that of the other stars. They thought that the moon was less useful, as he only gave light to the earth below and travelled through the sky. When the man in the moon heard their views, he was jealous, as he had been in the sky long before ships were built and travellers roamed the lands. Then he became angry and decided that he would not shine at all, or even allow the stars to brighten the night sky. But he couldn't do this on his own. So he enlisted the help of rain, thunder, and lightning. "The stars have become too proud," he told them. "They think that they rule the night sky, and they deserve to be taught a lesson. Please, will you help me do this?" After much persuasion, the moon won the cooperation of the elements. Thunder roared in the heavens. Streaks of lightning lit up the sky, and the rain pelted down onto the land. Darkness covered the land, and the rivers flooded, causing havoc on the earth. Trees, birds, and animals were swept away, and people sought refuge in caves and on mountain tops, experiencing great hardship, and they wondered what had happened to the weather. Many days went by. Because of the climate change, the people on earth were without food, and they were cold because of the darkened skies and absence of the sun to warm them and make their crops grow. The man in the moon was not upset by what he saw happening down on the ground. He was pleased because his wife Atai and the stars could not shine, and he gloated over them. Meanwhile, Atai became angry as she watched the flooding continue. Although she could not shine, she was pleased with the fact that her husband couldn't give light either. But they were both frustrated because they could not do what they were created to do. Meanwhile, the elements were overjoyed because never before had they exerted such influence. But on the earth, man suffered as a result. Although people prayed, some blamed each other for what was happening, and they began arguing amongst themselves, creating conflict. When night blanketed the earth, the people in caves had to keep fires burning all night to chase away the wild animals that threatened them. Every night they could see the luminous eyes of lions, hyenas, and leopards lying in wait just beyond the firelight. Normally, these animals would not attack men, but their prey was becoming scarce and they were growing thin and desperate without food. After a time, the stars became very worried about the situation and pleaded with Atai to reconsider her position and reconcile with her husband. "It is important to have harmony between the moon and the stars," they said. Then they suggested that when the moon was full and at its most brilliant, they could be less prominent and stay in the background. Then, when the moon was less prominent, the stars could shine brightly, having the sky to themselves, and the moon could be in the background. "Please do something, Atai," they pleaded. "If the elements persist, there will be no light on the earth, and perhaps no earth." But Atai did not take much interest in their proposals, and she was not prepared to do anything about it herself. She did, however, allow them to go to the man in the moon and try to make peace on her behalf. The man in the moon welcomed the stars, as he too had become unhappy with the situation. He was no longer in charge of the night sky, and he no longer had a wife. Although he pretended to show little interest in their suggestions, he said, "I'm pleased you have come to visit me. I am definitely the ruler of the night sky, but I do not want this argument to continue." The stars listened carefully to him as he continued. "I am willing to remain in the background, but I have responsibilities to the earth as it needs my light. If this argument continues, the earth will suffer even more." "Well, that's unselfish of you," replied the stars. And at last, an agreement was reached with the moon. But a problem arose with the elements. They were not eager to give up control of the sky, but eventually an arrangement was made between the three of them. At times the moon would shine and the stars would fade into the background. When the moon shone less intensely, the stars would shine brightly, advancing to the foreground. But there would also be a time when there would be darkness, so that the rain and the storms could reign. Eventually, having settled their differences, the man in the moon and his wife became friends once again, and they have remained close ever since. Some people on the earth love to see a full moon riding the night sky. Others love the brilliance of the stars, especially sailors who navigate by the position of the stars. As for the elements, people prefer gentle rain. They're dismayed when storms and flooding sweep across the land. People and their animals are frightened by the sound of thunder and lightning. But man has come to accept all weather conditions, as they all are necessary for the benefit of the earth. I hope you enjoyed this special omnibus edition of Journey with Story. And don't forget, if you had a favourite story, do let us know. Just go to www.journeywithstory.com, click on the Contact Us, and fill in the form. We love hearing from our listeners so much that from now on we're going to include all of your shout-outs for the month in this monthly omnibus. So, this month we give thanks to Simona in Costa Rica, who sent us a beautiful drawing inspired by our episode of the Two Widows. You can see her drawing on our March blog post. A huge thanks to Benji, who recently sent this lovely note. My name is Benji. My favourite story on your podcast is The Monster That Grew Small. My next favourite story is The Dancing Princesses. I've got a sister called Lydia and a brother called Dan. Thanks to Maeve in Canada, who wrote, Thank you for your podcast from Canada. My name is Maeve and I'm 10 years old. My mum and I have been listening to your podcast for a few years now, and I never feel too old for it. Thank you so much for your storytelling. They always bring me comfort and help me go to sleep. Thank you, Simona, Benji, and Maeve. And remember, if you have a drawing inspired by one of our episodes, or if you simply want to write us a note, just go to www.journeywithstory.com and click on the contact form. You can also see the link in our episode notes. Cheerio then. Join me next time for Journey with Story. Music and post-production was by Colette Jonas.